cake. Could everyone please rise and recite the council prayer with me, please? Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Mayor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Elliott. Councilor Kazandrian.
Here.
Councilor Lenzi.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
Councilor Armand Mercia.
Here.
8 present, 1 absent.
The chair would like to recognize the following councilors: Councilor James Milanazzo, Councilor Alec Kazanjian, Councilor Bill Martin, and the mayor. The first, I want to recognize Councilor James Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to request a moment of silence in darkened chambers for John J. Hogan, former Washington Savings Bank president, who passed away on Sunday, June 29th. John Hogan can best be described as a gentleman. He was a dedicated, loving family man, married to his wife, Patricia, for 50 years. In fact, they just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in April. Mr. Hogan is also the father of James Hogan and the father-in-law of Laurie Hogan. And he also has 3 wonderful granddaughters, Victoria, Alexandria, and Elizabeth. I have to say that anytime you asked John Hogan, as president of the Washington Savings Bank, to get involved in a community project, be it Julian Steel or the Downtown Venture Fund or the Chamber of Commerce or the Lowell Plan, he always said yes. So on behalf of the community, I really want to wish Mrs. Hogan well and just state that he was a wonderful man. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Milanazzo. Councilor William Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to offer a moment of silence in darkened chambers for Alice Britton Meehan, more commonly known as Sissy Meehan, the widow of Buster Meehan, was a wife, mother, grandmother, and very proud of her family, including 7 children. Her son Mark is an employee, an electrician, a master electrician. He always corrects me when I call him an electrician here in the city of Lowell. Her son Marty is the well-known chancellor at University of Massachusetts Lowell, and her son Paul. She also had 4 daughters: Colleen, Kathleen, Mary, and my classmate at the Sacred Heart School, Maureen. Everybody thinks I'm a friend of Marty's, and I am, but my association with Maureen goes back many, many years before I met Marty. Most of them still reside here in the city. All are fine examples of how children are to be raised and treat their parents. I know Sissy Meehan was very proud of her family, and she should be. She's also survived by a brother, Frank, and sister Pat Britton, who live here in the city, been here for many, many years. So they didn't make them any better than Sissy Meehan, and she will truly be missed.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor Alan Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. I would also like to have a moment of silence in darkest chambers for Constance Rita Dempsey, the beloved wife of William Dempsey. She was a loving mother of Margaret Dempsey and Colleen Dempsey. She was a member of the Ladies Hibernians, who gave a wonderful service Sunday evening at the funeral parlor for Connie. And Connie was just an outstanding person and a great contributor to the community over the years, and we're going to miss her dearly. And thank you,
Councilor Kazanjian. And the mayor would like to offer a moment of silence for Donald Fleming, a loving and devoted husband, father, grandfather, served his country with pride and distinction. Mr. Fleming was also a dedicated member of the Highland Little League and the Highland Players, a very dedicated and devoted citizens of our great city. Let us all stand in darkened chambers for these 4 outstanding citizens. Thank you. May they rest in peace. To move on with the agenda, I'd like to invite to the podium a woman who has worked tirelessly for the Rape Crisis Service of Greater Lowell. Please give her a wonderful welcome. Sun Hee Gage, Executive Director of the Rape Crisis Service. She'd like to address the council and the viewing audience at home. Sun Hee.
Good evening, City Councilors. What a privilege it is to stand here before you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Vice Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for allowing this opportunity for me to address you. As Mr. Mayor was saying, I was recently hired as the Executive Director of Rape Crisis Services of Greater Lowell, and what a privilege it is for me to stand here, represent this organization. I think most of you in this room have heard about this wonderful organization that's just located downtown, but I find it shocking as I go around introducing myself that most people, even though they have heard our name and organization, they really don't know what we do. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes here and introduce my organization and all the wonderful and vital services that it provides your constituents. So for over 30 years, we've been in the business of serving survivors of sexual assault and their families and their loved ones and significant others through counseling, advocacy, and education. We're really dedicated to serve not only women, but also male survivors of sexual assault. We deal with anybody who is over the age of 13, and we also provide counseling for their family as well as their friends. I just wanted to let you know that Rape Crisis Services is also funded by the state and certain federal funds, but CDBG, the City of Lowell's Community Development Block Grant, generously gives us $16,000 this fiscal year so that we can keep our doors open, serving these clients for free. A majority of our clients that come into our door are low income, low, moderate income. They're minorities. English is their second language, and they struggle with communicating. And so you can only imagine if they're having difficulty speaking the language, how much more vulnerable they are if they're, have been sexually assaulted. Any survivor can come to us for any one of these services. We have a 24-hour toll-free hotline. We offer 12 free private counseling sessions. And what we do is we give them intermediate crisis intervention, and then we actually transfer them on to long-term therapy if that's what they choose to do. We offer a variety of wonderful support groups, not just for survivors, but also for their significant others. If you're a parent and you're having a difficult time understanding what happened to your child or your teenager or your spouse, we offer support groups and also individual counseling for those individuals. Yoga therapy, art therapy, for incest survivors. As our clients need them, we develop these particular support groups and get them together, and they're able to access this as they need them. We also provide medical and legal advocacy, and what that means is that if we find that somebody has been sexually assaulted within a certain period of time, within 5 days, we basically suggest to them, and it's up to them if they wanted to go to the hospital or not, but we will go to the hospital, accompany them, and help them go through a really, really difficult rape kit where they're physically examined and taken care of at the hospital, but also for evidence collection for future prosecution. If they ever wanted to pursue legal and possibly prosecute, we will help them maneuver through that whole legal process, and we'll be there to advocate for them and counsel them. We offer this very, very unique program that is very unusual in the Commonwealth. We actually have a program coordinator that goes to detox program for substance abuse homes, and what we do is we see a very high correlation between substance abuse and prostitution. And so we actually have a caseworker specialized in that particular topic, and gives these women who are in these residential sites extra counseling around that particular topic. You know, our education department is phenomenal. We go throughout the city of Lowell, as well as greater communities in greater Lowell, and we reach about 5,000 children through our education department. And so, you know, with all of these services that we can offer the citizens here in Lowell and also in greater Lowell, I think this organization is amazing. And I'm just so proud to be the executive director of this organization, that because no other organization here in this city or even in this region does this very, very specialized and unique work. And so I thank you so much for listening. I thank you so much for your continued support. And I will call upon every one of you as we need support in the future. So
We thank you for your
thank you
dedication as
very
well,
much.
Sandy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over the past month and a half or so, Manager Lynch and I and Adam Bakey and councilors and many other people have been welcoming new businesses into our city. And I would like to acknowledge Borrego Solar this evening. Very interesting company located in Industrial Avenue. They're in the business of producing solar panels to come up with another energy source. Manager Lynch and I and Adam Bakey visited that site. It's a phenomenal building, a lot of renovations. They have 50 people employed with potential expanding to at least 80 people. And we want to present you with a citation, and to receive that citation is Jazra Sarara, I hope I pronounced that right, and Cara Morano. And the citation reads, "Be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby welcomes Borrego Solar and its crew, Chris Anderson, as a new business at Industrial Avenue and to solving the world's energy problems by accelerating the adoption of renewable energy. The City of Lowell commends the dedication of Borrego Solar in contributing to the business community. The entire City of Lowell extends its deepest wishes to Chris Anderson and employees of Borrego Solar for continued success, given this 8th day of July 2008 by Mayor Caulfield and the entire City Council and the Lynch administration. Congratulations to you."
Thank you, Mayor Caulfield. Borrego Solar is really excited to be a business member in the Lowell community. And I am an energy consultant for Borrego Solar. I specialize in municipalities. And I just have to say that visiting so many municipalities around the Commonwealth, the City Hall here is by far the most beautiful building and well-kept building that I've come across in the entire Commonwealth, and I'm sure this must be a wonderful focus of pride for the residents of the city, as well as for the City Council and for the Mayor, and be a source of inspiration for you folks as you move forward and welcome new businesses to the community. And I just want to say that we're very excited to be here as a member of the community here in Lowell. So Borrego Solar's mission is to solve the world's energy problems by accelerating the adoption of renewable energy. And we do so through being excellent in every aspect of what we do in our design and our construction and our implementation of solar systems around the Commonwealth. We're a 28-year-old company. We have over 700 installations between California, which is where our roots are, and in Massachusetts. And in the short year that we've been here in Massachusetts, we have just about 2 megawatts that are either under contract with Borrego or have already been installed. And 2 megawatts represents just about enough power to power about 500 homes. And we're looking forward to being able to provide further outreach within the community here. We specialize in a number of areas for solar installations, including municipalities, as well as affordable housing, residential applications, and commercial applications. And we have folks that are very excited to be able to meet with folks within the community here to help them solve their energy problems. We're all experiencing it. We're experiencing it at the pump. We're experiencing it every time that we open up that envelope from our energy provider and kind of cringe and wish that they wouldn't have to charge us so much, and unfortunately they do. And there are solutions. We're very glad that the city has opened its arms to us, and we really appreciate the warm welcome that we've received here. We're looking forward to future times with you folks, and we wish you all the best of luck in welcoming new businesses to the city.
Thank you very much, and welcome to Lowell.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's with great pleasure, too, that I recognize another business, a business that opened up in the Highlands. And I'd like to have Robert and Roberta Emerson please come to the podium. They are the new business owners of Wicked Irish, and they have a wonderful, wonderful product. And be it hereby known to all that the City of Lowell and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts hereby welcomes Wicked Irish and its owners, Robert and Roberta Emerson, as a new business making its home in Lowell. The city is honored that the Emersons chose to locate at 138 Highland Avenue, becoming a part of Lowell's growing business community. The entire City of Lowell wishes great success to Wicked Irish and its employees, given this 8th day of July, the year 2009, by Mayor Caulfield and the entire City Council. And you may show your product to these councilors and the viewing audience at home, and I'll present this citation to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, city councilors, city manager. I'd like to thank Mayor Caulfield for inviting us down here to introduce our company and be recognized by the city. We are very excited and enthusiastic about getting on a stage of this size to explain who we are. I get a bit long-winded. That's why I wrote these notes right here to keep me focused. I tend to be one of the dreamers of the company, so I'm going to kind of read from this. I first would like to introduce myself. My name is Robert Emerson. I currently reside at 366 Parker Street in the Highlands section of Lowell. I reside there with my wife and 4 beautiful children. I am currently one of the co-owners of Wicked Irish Incorporated, along with my partner Steve Erickson of Dunstable, Mass. And Dean Emerson of Lowell. Who are we and what do we do? That's the ultimate question everybody asks. Well, we are essentially a brand name clothing line. Our current product line has our name on such things as T-shirts, sweatshirts, and baseball caps, as you see what I'm wearing right here. We are slowly growing our product line, getting more stylish and adding more products every day. We started back in February 2006 with an idea. We sat around, as everybody does, talking about starting a business, and this is where Wicked Irish was born. We are Irish, and we're from New England. The word wicked has a direct link to the New England slang, which means great or very. This is what we market as part of our sales pitch. We have been able to attend 15 to 20 festivals and events a year throughout New England area, New York, and Pennsylvania. We currently cater to our market through these Irish and Celtic festivals and with our online website sales at wickedirish.com. We have our first catalog going into print and are working with our sales and marketing team, have plans to move our products into some of the local retail stores such as the Paper Store, Olympia Sports, and iParty. We started in a kitchen and moved into a garage, and now we have a place to call home once again. Our new space is on the corner of Highland Avenue and Parker Street in the Highlands section of Lowell. You have your Life is Goods, your Abercrombies, your Hollisters, your Izod's, all well-known clothing lines, and now you have Wicked Irish. We're out there trying to create a buzz for our products and our company, and if we can get some positive notoriety for our company at the same time and have it reflect back on our city, then Wicked Irish is up for it. We are proud of who we are and where we're from. Add that to a cool name and some quality clothing, and I can't see us missing. Thank you again for this opportunity. We look forward to calling Lowell home to our headquarters. I've also brought down some of the products that we have. I actually brought down some shirts for all the city councilors, the city manager, and the mayor. even if you're not Irish, the non-Irish can have something to wear on St. Patrick's Day. Without digressing too much, we are also currently working on some things that will appeal to all New Englanders, not just the Irish. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you very
for
much,
inviting us.
Robert. Thank you.
Thank you.
And best of luck to you.
You got the shirts right here.
Yes. The Manager Lynch and I and Anna Becky have welcomed other businesses, and we're going to have them come to the podium over the summer months. Nobus Engineering, and there was a fabric producer that made wonderful pop-up tents or whatever you want to call them for the government. So we're going to have them in as well. So. $49.95. As soon as he's good. I will now entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting and place them on file by Councilor Ahmed Mercia, seconded by Councilor Bill Martin. All in favor, signify by saying aye. The minutes have been accepted and placed on file. Are there any communications you'd like to discuss with Manager Lynch? Council, Manager Lynch, Council Rita Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In our packet, we received the names of city employees who retired or were about to retire, and I'd just like to recognize the 4 names that we had. From the school department, Judith Markopoulos from Food Services, 15 years, city employee. From the school department, Alice Miller, secretary at the Parent Information Center, city employee for 21 years. Water utility, Teddy Oxton, motor equipment repairman, employed in the city for 39 years and 4 months. Teddy was a very personal friend of my family, so I wish him the best of luck as well. City of Lowell retirement person, Rosemary Sullivan, executive secretary in the retirement office downstairs, city employee for only 40 years and 6 months. I don't know why she didn't just stay the extra 6 months and make it an even 41. I can't figure that out. But to these 4 people, we wish them the best, as well as a long time in retirement to enjoy the many years that they should be entitled to enjoy. Thanks to each of them for their many years of dedicated service. And I also wrote this down because I get long-winded too, and I just wanted to keep it brief, but congratulations and best wishes to those 4 people. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Rita Mercia. Anyone else would like? Councilor Milanazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a memo in our packet from Assistant City Manager T.J. McCarthy to both the city manager and the mayor regarding the FEMA flood insurance map update. And the last part of the memo talks about action steps that need to be taken, and I'm just curious as to the status of those 3 action steps that we need to go forward relative to developing an appeal form and the like.
Councilor, those are all underway right now. We're working to put those in place and to be in communication with the residents that are affected in the area.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Ahmed Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a memo here from the city manager regarding the Bootville parking, a Section 108 loan. My question is that they are in default right now of the 108 loan, and it doesn't indicate how much money they're in default of. We do have a number as it relates to the parking agreement, but nothing as it relates to the 108 loan, which is part of our money also. So could you just let us know at some point in time what that money is that they're in default of?
I will. We had some communications with the council a while back regarding this issue, and we'll update that information and keep you abreast of those issues as they continue forward.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor William Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to follow up on the FEMA memo that Councilor Milanazzo had talked about. Is there any, we've done quite a bit of sewer separation work, although I know probably none in Centerville, or at least nothing that significant. But is any of that or the flood relief going to alleviate the need to repair that pump station? I suppose
Not in that area. In fact, we anticipate that it will survey, and Mr. McCarthy's here, and he can add to this and correct me if I'm wrong, but we actually believe that it will serve a purpose for us in terms of the overall CSO work that will be done in that area in the future. So it's almost the opposite. It will help us, we think, moving forward with some of the CSO, but nothing, we haven't done anything in that area, and nothing we will be doing will alleviate the need for that, according to the requirements of the Corps of Engineers. But it was a concern of mine, and I know of Mr. McCarthy's and the wastewater people, that it's a large amount of money that has to be expended for that pump station, for something that is not generally used much in terms of flood protection, but we think it will serve a purpose for some of the CSO issues that we have out in that area.
All right. So if we are going to have to repair the station, then
We will have to repair that station.
do we have any update, or were either of these storms the last 2 years, the 100-year storm, are we anywhere close to that with those storms? I mean, we had pretty significant flooding the last 2 years, and yet this area, Centerville, really wasn't impacted very much.
No, it wasn't. In large part, I think that had to do with in 2006 and 2007, we did have flooding out in that area, and of course the wall that the Corps of Engineers built back in the 1940s was used during those times, and so it did that did certainly benefit that particular neighborhood. But for instance, that pump station was never used during those events. Those were not quite 100-year storms. Actually, recent discussions with Enel and the Corps of Engineers has provided us with information that they came close to the 100-year storm level, but they in fact were not true 100-year events.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilor Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding that Boot Mills that Councilor Armin Mercia brought up, are there people living in that building? Is that finished?
There are two sections of the Boot complex. I guess truthfully, there are three sections. There's the apartments that are currently in place, and there are people living there. That is not part of this loan. This loan only applies to the commercial section of the project, and there are no businesses located in that at this time. There's also another section that the 108 loan does not apply to. That's a condominium project that was being done by the same developer that we lent this money to.
Right.
And there are, I believe, 20 units that are occupied, roughly 20 units that are occupied out of the total project. So we're in discussions with the developer as well as other financial institutions to try to remedy this situation.
Okay, so it's more so the commercial end of it that's owes the money.
The 108
versus
loan
resident?
the 108 loan is only for commercial purposes.
Okay, and it's for the parking, is that correct?
No, the 108 loan is for the actual development of the site. But the developer who was also involved in another segment of this in which there are some commercial businesses has a parking agreement, and he's in default on that as well. And that's what this letter refers to.
All right, because I know we approved some type of variance for that complex back on the zoning board of appeals, so that was part of the agreement that, and if we renege, which is fine, if he owes the money, he's got to come forward, or either has to go back to the zoning board of appeals somewhat, because he's not going to have the adequate parking that he's supposed to have, that we approved.
That's correct.
Few
We're
years
working.
ago, so.
We're working with the existing businesses that are have been utilizing the parking. The parking that he's he has the agreement for applies to the two commercial components of the overall project. There are some businesses already in place there. They have been utilizing the parking. We're dealing directly with those businesses now. The other part of the commercial part of this project in which we have the 108 loan, there's no tenant there, but we do have reserved parking for them. So that's what has also been terminated through this action.
Okay, and we'll find out when we can work something out shortly.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're working on that now. It's some, I'd have to call them delicate negotiations with a number of parties.
Okay.
But with regards to the parking, clearly we want to ensure that the businesses that are located there are protected. And so we're dealing directly with them now as opposed to the developer.
Okay, I want to thank Armin Mercer for bringing it up.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. We had a communication on our desk from the city solicitor relative to the subcommittee, the Auditor Oversight Subcommittee on the auditor's review in the process that we need to undergo to finish the evaluation and set as is recommended here pursuant to the contract, define goals and establish a relative priority among the goals that we set. So I would make a motion that we refer this back to the subcommittee. It gives us direction on how to finish up the evaluation.
Second.
And it does recommend a written goals. So maybe we can work through some some type of format to implement for the written goals prior to the meeting. But see if we can get that done in the next couple of weeks. And also, I think we need to initiate and finish the clerk's evaluation as well. So,
Yes.
if we could
Counsel,
just-
what subcommittee are you referring that to?
The Clerk Auditor Oversight Subcommittee.
Okay. Motion by Counsel Broderick
Yes.
to
Second.
furnish this to the Clerk
Second.
Oversight Audit Subcommittee, seconded by
Second.
Counsel Rita Mercia. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. There's one last thing, Mr. Manager, I'd like to bring forward is I brought this forward probably a month ago about the Kentucky Fried Chicken parking lot. And my wife, my daughter, my 2 grandchildren were nearly broadsided there Saturday evening. Something must be done. And many of my colleagues have gone up and looked at it, and they agree with me. So it's something that has to be addressed.
Mr. Mayor, I couldn't agree with you more. It does need to be addressed. Again, this is a situation where we're dealing with a private property owner, and it's all the issues that relate there are on private property. But we're exploring some legal remedies to see what we can do to have some type of corrective action taken.
Okay. Counsel Broderick, then Counsel Kasanshian.
Yeah, I understand it's private property, and that's what the difficulty is. We can't just go and throw up barriers or, but are they in compliance with the parking setbacks, and is there something we can do? Is there an adjustment we can or need to make in the ordinance that if it's an open curb, maybe they have to install some type of blocking device at the end of the parking area or something, so that cars can't roll forward and go out in the street. They have to back out and exit through the exit.
The chair would like to recognize Adam Begay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, councilors. Transportation Engineer Jeff Gomes has been in communication with the owners of that property and has had a couple of meetings out there with them and is working on trying to find a solution that we can do in cooperation between the city and the private property owner. We are optimistic that we're going to be able to figure something out there, but it is definitely complicated by ownership and legal issues and sort of who has control of what. In terms of the question of whether we can, crack down on them with respect to zoning, it's quite likely that any nonconformities that they have out there are probably grandfathered at this point. So it's probably unlikely that we can formally crack down. And the area in question is actually not so much the parking area as the area between the drive-through lane and the street.
Right.
So it's not one where we have a lot of zoning regulation that would even apply to it in that particular case. But again, we do hope that we'll be able to achieve a solution that will address the concern.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate the council and the mayor bringing that to our attention.
Thank you. Counsel Kasanshian?
Well, like I said before, Mr. Mayor, this is definitely a problem. I agree with you. I travel that street somewhat, and they think that street is actually part of the drive-through.
Right.
And I think we put some type of curbing or some type of barrier, it'll work. And I think last time I mentioned, curb cut is, I think, 32 feet, 34 feet, a legal curb cut. I think they have about 150 feet. Is that something we can use, or is it?
Yeah. The main issue here is, I can't blame the people who go there to buy their
That's definitely
product.
not, yeah, right, exactly.
You can't tell the difference between the parking lot
Right.
and
They
Hadley
need
Street.
either a curb
And-
there or some type of barrier, whether it's,
Go ahead, Mr.
If I may, Councilor, I agree completely. And again, I think this is one of the situations that Kentucky Fried Chicken has been there probably for 30-plus years that I'm aware of it being there. And at the time, the regulations of the city did not require such a curb or any type of improvements. And it's difficult to go back now and require them to spend the tens of thousands of dollars that need to be spent to do that. That's why we're trying to find a solution that can be utilized, and as Mr. Bakey indicated, we're working through our traffic engineer to see, and we're optimistic we will have something.
okay, thank you.
The chair would like to recognize the city solicitor.
Yesterday, Jeff Gomes and I met, and what we're exploring is legal communication to Kentucky Fried Chicken and also exploring whether Kentucky Fried Chicken will allow the city at its own expense to place a stop sign on their property, and to also work out some sort of a system that will color code and delineate the end of their driveway and the beginning of the street. And what Mr. Gomes was talking about was a different textured surface material that would alert drivers that they're now crossing over some sort of a barrier from the driveway into the parking lot. So we hope to have that communication out by the end of the week. And he's been, as Mr. Backey had indicated, Mr. Gomes has been out at the site and working. And the stumbling block that he ran into, which he then brought up to the law department, was the fact that you're dealing with the private property. But it's an issue that we're hopeful and optimistic that we're going to be able to resolve.
Thank you. I'm very optimistic that something will be done in a positive way. So, Councilor Mercier, quick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I made 2 motions recently that were referred to the Board of Parks, and on June 25th, on a Wednesday, they took the 2 issues up, and I'm honored to say that the board voted unanimously to rename the Lowell High School varsity soccer field the Lucas F. Cavallo Senior Varsity Soccer Field. I'm very honored that they did that. And the other motion to move the Tabitha Porter Memorial from the Health Department to Shed Park, that passed as well. So I want to publicly thank the board, John Linehan, Bernie Judge, Mike Sullivan, Alan Miller, and Peter Finnegan. Thank you very much for seeing that these 2 things passed, and they're well-deserving. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go into the public hearing. The public hearing, anyone wishing to speak on the various ordinances, you will have 5 minutes or less. You must give us your name and address. And on the first ordinance implementing actions consistent with 2009 city budget adopted 690, it's been going to be withheld for 2 weeks. I'll read the ordinance and we'll open up that portion, but it's going to be withheld for 2 weeks. An ordinance creating new positions, deleting and abolishing some positions, and establishing salaries of said new positions, and amending the compensation of certain employees and other changes, all consistent with and included in the City of Lowell budget for fiscal year 2009, passed by the City Council on June 9, 2008. That will be withheld for 2 weeks. The next article on the ordinances. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, as amended Chapter 5 thereof, entitled Buildings and Building Regulations, by adding a new section entitled Vacant and Foreclosing Properties. Anyone wishing to come to the podium and speak in favor? To speak in favor, yes.
Mr. Mayor, good evening. City Councilors, Mr. Manager. My name is Frank Cavallo, 45 Norris Road, Thingsboro, also the owner of a building and the business located at 220 Center Street in the City of Lowell. I am the co-chair of the Lowell Foreclosure Prevention Task Force, which brings together the city, the private and nonprofit sectors, and concerned citizens. Over the past 2 years, many volunteers in the task force have spent countless hours helping to create resources to assist Lowell homeowners to deal with the foreclosure crisis. In 2007, and during the first 6 months of 2008, Lowell had in excess of 450 properties foreclosed upon. Foreclosures have a negative impact in the local real estate values. If these properties are allowed to sit vacant and unattended, other issues such as blight and criminal activities may occur, which will not only continue to erode the local real estate values, but also negatively impact the quality of life in our neighborhoods. The majority of these foreclosures have been initiated by national lenders who, quite frankly, have several hundreds, if not thousands, of similar situations throughout the country, and Lowell then becomes just another dot on their map. This ordinance will provide the city and the residents with a useful tool that will assist them in helping the people who have foreclosed in Lowell, in holding the people who have foreclosed in Lowell accountable for the security and the upkeep of these properties, as well as provide a local contact of the property managers. On behalf of the Lowell Foreclosure Prevention Task Force, I urge you to adopt this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come to the podium and speak in favor of this ordinance?
Good evening. My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street, where I own my home with my husband. I am the president of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, and when you look at this lovely map of Lowell, you will read that 103 foreclosures are in Centerville. And we came down and sat in on the subcommittee in regards to this ordinance. And even though some of these issues might be on the books now with the health code, this is a very important ordinance and it really needs to be enforced. We have buildings up there abandoned, foreclosed, absentee landlords, and they're trash. And they devalue the other neighbor's property, which is not fair and which I believe is not legal. So we are quite excited about the ordinance, and we really do hope you will all give it some very serious thought and that you will pass it. And I think the part that we really liked was on section 5-124. The name and 24-hour contact phone number of the local individual or property management company responsible for maintenance shall be affixed to the property. The sign shall be posted on the front of the property so it is clearly visible from the street. That ought to get somebody's attention. I'll keep it short and sweet. It's a hot night, and you all look very hot. So I thank you very much. We really do hope you will support this. It is well needed, and the key word here is enforcement. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. Who else would like to come to the podium to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? In opposition. Public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the body?
Move approval.
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercer. Any discussion before we have a roll call? Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
This elected body just passed a very important ordinance that will improve our city, the cleanliness of our city, and the appearance of the city. And I want to thank the council for that. And I want to thank the people who come to the podium to speak as well. Moving on with the agenda. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, has amended Chapter 17 thereof entitled Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places by amending Article 4 entitled Evacuations by creating a new section 17-148 entitled Driveways and Paving thereof. Anyone wishing to come to the podium to speak in favor? To speak in favor of this ordinance? To speak in favor? To speak in favor. That portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to come to the podium and speak in opposition to this ordinance. Opposition? Opposition. Public hearing is closed. The wish of the body. Councilor Broderick?
Move approval.
Move approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Arman Mercia. Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott. Councilor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 absent.
Once again, this is a very important ordinance, and my colleagues have all seen the pictures of one driveway being expanded with a City of Lowell hydrant in the middle of the driveway. And that's inexcusable, unacceptable, and I want to thank Lisa DeMayo, the engineer, and everyone who worked in this, Manager Lynch, to bring this forward. Moving on with the agenda. An ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, with respect to Chapter 13 thereof entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic. Anyone wishing to come to the podium to speak in favor? In favor? In favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Speak in opposition? Opposition? That public hearing is closed. Wish of the body?
Move approval.
Move approval by Councilor Arman Mercia, second by Councilor Rita Mercia. Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi. Yes. Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
The last item on the public hearing is a ordinance of permission for Exonet requests permission to place wires and appurtenances throughout the city. Those wishing to speak in favor, come forward to the podium, please.
Good evening, Dave Schneider from Exonet Systems. I have some handouts that I want to, if I can just approach and split them both ways, I guess. I believe a picture is worth 1,000 words, so I want to put this out. Before I get started, though, I want to just let everybody know we started approaching the city, had to be August, and quite an arduous and learning process, and I'd like everyone to know that Rick Johnson, Sue LeMay, Adam, your attorney's office, your assistant city manager, I've been working within the city government since the mid-'80s, and I've never had such a great pleasure working with a bunch of good staff people. Real pleased to work with everybody in this city. I told this story to Lawrence when I was there 2 weeks ago. The day before that hearing, my 17-year-old daughter and I went out to dinner, and she was telling me about her friend going to school in Chicago for the summer and a bunch of things that she was up to, and I said, really, did she call you? And she says, no, she text messaged me. And I said, you learned all this stuff off of a couple of text messages? And she said, well, you know, Dad, it is a more efficient way of communicating than email. So I think that kind of gives a story of where this wireless stuff is going. I mean, there's people our age that use cell phones. These kids, it's unbelievable what they're doing with that. And what Exonet is proposing to do in your community is a new way of making wireless work. And if you look at that first picture, basically what I'm showing you is this isn't a way to replace cell towers. It's a new technology that works in conjunction with cell towers. So I did this diagram just so you kind of understand how this technology works. And you're familiar with what a cell tower, there's what they call base station equipment. You'll see shelters at the bottom of it, or sometimes they use outdoor equipment. It's that big cabinet that sits at the bottom of a cell tower. Well, that's an individual phone company's phone equipment for that site. Basically, it takes that call, runs it up the tower on coax line to the antennas. What a distributed antenna system does is it works in conjunction with that type of technology. It's not a replacement for it, it's just an alternative. We take that equipment that's usually at the base of a cell tower, we put it in one location, it's called our base station hotel. We put optical conversion equipment in there. They then send us that signal, we convert it to light, it goes out over fiber optic cable to the different node locations, in this case telephone poles, where it hits those little boxes, gets converted back to an RF signal and up to the antennas on the top. These pictures, unfortunately, we're using a new antenna here. This top picture is in Michigan. It's just to show you how big the antennas are relative to transformers that are all over your city. In this case, we're actually using an antenna that's only about 1 inch in diameter and about as high as this. It's just a little whip antenna. To show you how big the DAS radios are, these cable TV power boxes, that's their backup boxes that your cable TV company uses. There's batteries in there, and you've got those throughout your community. You might not have noticed now that I pointed them out. You'll probably see them everywhere, and I apologize for that. But there's the radio relative to the size of that. And then just to show you how the fiber line gets run, typical utilities, you'll have a ground on the top. If they're higher voltage, you have that 13 kV line. Your electric service lines, and then we are in what's called the communication zone. That's where your cable company, your phone company, and we go. And so that's what we're doing. We're working with a new company, so you'll have a new phone service in Lowell. They're very competitive. They're very good for kids and people that just don't want to get hooked into 2-year service agreements. And it's a great thing. It's great competition for the city, and we're pleased to be here.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come to the podium to speak in favor? Anyone else speak in favor? In favor? Favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Those wishing to speak in opposition? 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 Public hearing is closed. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor and councilors, I want to thank Mr. Schneider for his very kind words regarding the city staff that he's been working with. I think it's a very exciting project for the city of Lowell to. It's really a great advancement in technology, and I think having Exonet here is going to be a real plus for the city. We have been having discussions at one of the last meetings where we talked about Externet coming in. We had some discussions regarding the interface, the cooperation that could exist between the city and this Externet as a company coming into the city. And we've had some very productive conversations over the last a few weeks. And I understand Externet's been doing work in the city, preparing for this for some time. We have been having discussions regarding some cooperative efforts in terms of the distribution of fiber throughout the city for the city's use, whether it be a situation where we purchase the fiber and provide it to Externet to run through the city as they install their fiber, or another alternative where they, I guess there's some extra capacity in some of their fiber that they may be able to make available to the city. I know that they've been waiting anxiously to get into Lowell, and I know they're talking to a number of other communities. What I would ask the City Council to do is allow us to try to hammer this out over the course of the next 2 weeks so that we put this in actual legal language, because we haven't been able to reach agreement yet on that actually taking place. But we think that there's some opportunities there that could certainly benefit the city in return for the use of this lines going through the public ways. So I would ask that the City Council take that action.
Second.
Motion delayed for 2 weeks by Councilor Armin Mercia, second by Councilor Jim Milanazzo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Is there any way we can bring this maybe to a subcommittee so we get, I don't know anything about this, and we're going to run wires throughout the city, and I think we have enough wires in the city, and if we can bring this in some type of subcommittee, but we have 2 weeks, maybe in the midstream.
Make a motion, Council, and we'll just, whatever subcommittee.
I'd like to
the
suspend the
neighborhood
rules
traffic
and
or
make a motion
finance or-
to refer it to a subcommittee if it's possible.
Councilor Elliott.
Yeah, I'll second that motion. I guess I'm a little confused as to why this is on as a public hearing. And does this have to go through a 30B process, or no? It doesn't.
No, this isn't this is a utility issue. It's
Okay.
putting utilities through the public ways, and that's why it would
Okay.
go in as a public hearing. It's governed under state statute.
So the statute says you hold a public hearing before you even go into any negotiations?
That's correct, because
with
of
that?
because of the abutters that are involved with this.
Okay, and have the abutters been notified, or
Yes.
this is the process that they're being notified? Because I bet there were some
That-
folks here that.
That's correct.
Okay. So the next step is that they sit down, once the notification process has taken place, it goes to you?
No, it wouldn't necessarily. I mean,
Or the
certainly the
subcommittee?
council doesn't have to do that, but that was just my request, because
Okay.
I think we have some opportunities here to work cooperatively.
Okay. Is there a time frame on this? I mean, is there some time frame attached to this, or is there some sense of
It's
urgency?
been delayed for
or-
2 weeks by,
Yeah.
Well, I think the motion by Council Kazanjian was to send it to a subcommittee, which
Right.
Council Rita.
I'd like some more
Thank
information
you.
myself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little bit, Mr. Schneider said that the pictures speaks 1,000 words. Well, I'm still confused about it, but that's all right, because it's still all Greek to me. But be that as it may, I'm concerned about this particular question, and maybe it's me, I don't know, but I always was thinking that when you have a utility pole or someone coming in that is going to string up something or wire something, they're going to eventually, at one point, make a profit on this. And I know they're spending money, but they're going to... Is there such a thing that the city can generate some funds because it's going over our property? The city owns the property, and they're going over the line. Do we generate anything from this? How does the city benefit from this? I mean, it's nice that he's coming in. I appreciate that. But what do we get out of this for the city?
Right.
You're going over our city property. Do we have anything to...
Well, I'm going to defer to part of this to the solicitor. Certainly, there is a benefit in having these utilities in the city in terms of making us more competitive in terms of the technology that we have available to us. I agree with Councilor Kazanjian about wires everywhere, but I mean, some of it's a reality, and some of it we have to put up with. But I think there is certainly a benefit in that regard. We are looking for additional benefit, though. If we can link our fiber in with, that will provide telecommunication opportunities for the city for our own operations, and that's what we're trying to achieve. But beyond that, in terms of revenue coming to the city, I'll defer that to the solicitor.
Councilor, we had looked into that issue as well. There was only one community that we had been made aware that they had gone through a public bidding process, but it was for something totally different, services that they were requesting. In this particular case, the city has received approximately $22,000 in fees from Extranet as a result of generating an abutters list. And from what I understand from Extranet, the city of Lowell is the only community in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has received any funds from an abutters list, or what funds have been received from by Extranet from other communities has been very minimal in nature. But the City Council has an ordinance in place. That ordinance was followed. Extranet cooperated with that, and a significant sum of money was paid for the abutters list. Beyond that, as the manager had indicated, we were looking to see if there was some additional benefit that really wouldn't necessarily generate any additional out-of-pocket expense for Extranet. It's something that's currently being explored, and the parties haven't yet come to a conclusion as to whether that's possible or not. But that's the issue that the manager brought up. But in answer to your question, no. And the benefit is, as the manager had indicated, it's something that improves quality of life in the city for residents.
That's good. Thank you.
Councilor Martin?
So if I could follow up on that, so the case that's pending before the appellate tax board, or that was just decided about taxing utilities, is that the poles? Is that the infrastructure? Apparently it's not the wires.
I believe it's more the poles and the equipment than it is the wires, and that's something that I was just saying to Ms. Sheehan that I wish Tom were here tonight, because he may have an answer on this and some of the property tax issues that relate to this. The telecommunications tax issue applies, perhaps, as well as some of the other assessing guidelines. So we'll follow up to Councilor Mercier's question. We'll have some information on that in 2 weeks as well.
Okay.
Most of our focus over the last since this was first brought to the council has been on the receiving the fee for the abutters list, which certainly is a benefit or is helpful to the city, but also trying to explore the ways that we can work cooperatively so that there is truly a benefit to the city, in addition to the opportunities that Extranet will obviously receive as a result of this expansion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Manager.
Councilor Lindsay?
When you say competitive, does this create competition with the other utilities, or is this just to enhance the quality of the service that these companies offer now?
Councilor, as I understand it, the service that is provided by Extranet would be available to any or all of the wireless providers that are currently operating now, so it's not a direct competitor, it's a collaborator with those other companies.
All set, Councilor?
Yeah, and so this would enhance the quality of the service? For instance, does this affect dropped calls and things of those?
It would presumably enhance the quality of the service and fill in some of those dead spots and result in fewer drops.
I agree with the council. I think we need more information on this particular subject matter, and I'd like to make a suggestion that we refer this to the Comcast, the Cable TV Subcommittee, and Councilor Martin is the chairman, along with Councilor Lindsay, Councilor Kazanjian, and Councilor Rita Mercier. If you have another subcommittee you'd like to send that to, that's fine.
I have a question. I have no objections to that, but what does that do to our public hearing that was held tonight?
Well, I think it's a ways and means of obtaining more information.
Well, I'd like to ask the city solicitor, I mean, delaying this for 2 weeks when we've already had a public hearing, and now it goes to a subcommittee, which I think it should have went there to begin with. What does that do with the status legally of our public hearing? Shouldn't we just discontinue the public hearing?
Well, as far as the public hearing, the abutters notices had gone out, and and money was spent on the noticing of the public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the purpose of the subcommittee, if somebody could elaborate, I guess, what the purpose of the subcommittee would be, because I mean, preferably, because we've already had the public hearing, and it's now been taken under advisement for additional 2 weeks prior to the council rendering a decision on it, that's appropriate. But what would be the purpose of the public hearing?
To receive more information on this communication.
You know, again, you raise a good point. Procedurally, the information gathering could occur during the public hearing process as opposed to in a subcommittee. I don't know if there are some more specific questions, if they could be raised while extranet is here.
So the subcommittee's purpose at this point is only to gather more information
Apparently.
in order to act on the public hearings before us.
Right.
And I think what Council Rita Mercy brought up was substantial. I mean, what is the city going to benefit and get out of?
Oh, I have no problems with
Right.
it, but I just want to make sure we don't give them an opportunity legally,
Yeah,
if they,
I
doesn't
understand.
go to their favor, to come after us because we didn't follow the rules of the public hearing. That's my only concern.
Right. Is there any, yes, Council Manager Lynch?
If I may, I think that, adding to the solicitor's comments, I think that certainly the negotiations that are ongoing with regards to the ways in which the city could cooperate on this type of network being installed, if we could work through that process, and then I certainly understand Councilor Kazanjian's questions and Councilor Rita Mercy's questions regarding the seeking more information, and that certainly could be done at the next, as this public hearing continues, and having those specific questions asked of Extonet so that they, as councilors, have a better understanding of what, and the public has a better understanding of what this will entail and how it will affect the existing number of wires that run through the city, as well as the need for additional wires.
Council Martin.
So if I could just direct to the solicitor, is your advice, I mean, to not have a subcommittee meeting and have the questions presented here or next Tuesday? I mean, I think Councilor Kazanjian's point is well taken. The subcommittee process kind of lends itself to more back and forth dialogue and an opportunity to learn some facts. Now, if that's not possible in this case, I guess we should understand why, and if it is possible, we should do it. So, do you have a view on whether we should avoid having a subcommittee meeting about this or not?
Well, again, procedurally, it's not necessarily technically out of order, but it's certainly out of order in terms of the normal way this would be conducted. And in this particular case, again, Extranet had spent considerable sums notifying abutters, and then the public hearing was noticed. I do think that, while I would hate to see the council not have all the information available, if we could do it pursuant to the continuation of the public hearing in 2 weeks, I think procedurally that would be a better course of action, and some of that additional information could come in-house from the law department or the manager's office.
Council.
First of all, I totally agree with, we don't have enough information on regards to this. My concern, however, is that the public hearing has been held. It's now going to be delayed. That puts a little bind on our ability to comment on this new information we get, because we've already had the public hearing. So if there is a way for the public hearing to be continued for 2 weeks, and that the additional information we're all looking for be provided at that time, at the continuation of the public hearing, I think it would take away any legalities that they may have if something doesn't go their way.
Right.
And I'm not a lawyer. I'm just suggesting that
Right.
I'm worried about that.
Yeah, no, again, as I indicated, I think it's a good point. It's certainly not some sort of a judicial proceeding whereby you're taking evidence, if you will, outside the parameters of an actual hearing and going beyond that. But again, I think you raise a good point, and procedurally, if it could be done in that way, in that manner, I think it's a better way of moving on.
So
with
instead
this.
of the subcommittee, be the committee as a whole prior
Right.
to making a decision on the public hearing that's before us.
Right.
So that information that we're all seeking could be provided to us at the continuation date of the public hearing.
That's right.
That would then eliminate the possibility that subcommittees now are involved in something prior to vote on a public hearing.
Right.
We'll have a subcommittee
That's
of the
okay.
whole. That's
Yes.
what- Council Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There you
I
go.
think, I think the intent to send it to the subcommittee is what we normally do. I think that this kind of snuck up on us whereby nobody really expected or knew what was going on, and it seems that you're initiated or undergoing negotiations, and I think we could be taking a risk by getting the subcommittee form and asking you questions and having a dialogue and discussion on the negotiations. But I think we all agree we need more information, and maybe it can be done in the form of a report prior to the next meeting, and then if we don't have the information we need, then whatever happens, happens. But I think there's a valid concern in the solicitor raises, and Councilwoman Mercia, that it's difficult to ask questions and not give the impression of forming an opinion. And I think that if this, with negotiations ongoing, we could be taking a risk that we might not necessarily want to do. Thank you.
Council Kazanjian?
Thank you, Mayor. It really doesn't matter to me whether we have a subcommittee or if we do this in 2 weeks. As long as we're not going to put anything in jeopardy, but the reason why I said it, I didn't have enough information. It just brought to our attention tonight, and I just want to find out what are the pros and cons and how is it going to help out the city. So if we can get all this information in our packet for the next meeting and have the representative here, and we can ask some questions, that's fine with me also.
So you withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my motion, yes.
That's the cleanest way of doing it, actually.
So this is delayed for 2 weeks, and Mr. Manager, the council will be furnished with all the pertinent information that they need, and we'll have a discussion of the committee as a whole on this issue. Thank you. Moving on with the agenda.
Mr.
No,
Mayor?
I'm sorry. Council Milonazo.
Thank you. I don't usually do this, but I would ask my colleagues to consider a suspension of the rules to take up item number 13, a
Right.
vote
I was going to
accepting.
do that.
Okay, you were? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll defer to the mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Council, once you do that.
Okay, we have people in the audience tonight who have registered to speak on item 13, accepting a gift of $2,900 from Alfred Cohen for the irrigation system at Coburn Park. So as much as I know they're interested in form-based zoning, I thought that if we could take it out of order.
Sure. Any
Second.
problem with taking that?
Second on that.
That out of order? Okay. City of Lowell vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept the gift of $2,900 from Mr. Alfred H. Coburn and the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust Incorporated to be used to install an irrigation system at Coburn Park. Whereas Mr. Alfred H. Coburn and the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust Incorporated wishes to donate a gift of $2,900 to be used to install an irrigation system at Coburn Park. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Milonazo, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. And opposed, the full reading is waived. Second reading by title, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept the gift of $2,900 from Mr. Alfred H. Coburn and the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust Incorporated to be used to install an irrigation system at Coburn Park. And I believe we have two people registered to speak. Mr. Henry Marchand.
Thank you. Mayor Caulfield, members of the council, Manager Lynch, good evening, and thank you for allowing us to jump ahead a little bit on the agenda. I'm Henry Marchand. I live at 91 Crawford Street, and I also serve as president of the Lowell Parks Conservation Trust. And it's my pleasure to come before you tonight on behalf of the Lowell Parks Conservation Trust to ask that you officially accept a contribution of $2,900 for the installation of a sprinkler system in Coburn Park. Now, I know you're probably all thinking what I'm thinking right now. I wish we had a cool sprinkler system in these chambers. Unfortunately, the mission of the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust deals only with Lowell's outdoor beautiful spaces. As you know, Coburn Park is the result of the vision and philanthropy of Alfred Coburn, whose family first donated the parcel of land at Chelmsford and Stevens Street to the city. In 2006, Mr. Coburn decided that the park ought to be enhanced and provided $60,000 to support not only the capital improvements to the park, but to create an endowment for perpetual care, always a challenge with these types of projects and green spaces. This endowment provides for maintenance and amenities beyond basic city services, such as fixture repair and replacement and watering of the park's gardens. The Lowell Parks Conservation Trust is actively working to expand such park endowments, for which the city now has 5. The Lowell Parks Conservation Trust has worked closely with Mr. Coburn to monitor the ongoing costs of maintaining the park and have found that the annual costs of just watering the flower beds, depletes the endowment, reducing our ability to replace plants or make repairs. We are thankful for Mr. Coburn. We are thankful for Mr. Coburn's generosity to the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust and to the city for his foresight in sustaining this oasis by providing these additional funds for installation of the irrigation system. We thank him for his continued vision and commitment to one of Lowell's special places. Coburn Park, like several others in the city, is a great example of how the Lowell Parks Conservation Trust can leverage partnerships with agencies such as the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, the city's departments, and generous private individuals to enhance our city's natural resources. We're thrilled to be part of these accomplishments and look forward to replicating this model partnership to bring at least one of these types of parks to each neighborhood in our city. Thank you for your time and continued support.
Thank you, Mr. Marchand. There was only one person registered to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this particular? Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I serve on the board of the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust, have for many years, and I just wanted to publicly acknowledge Mr. Coburn's generosity in this. It's really been a labor of love for him and his family, but it's really just a terrific testament to him and his family that they've created a very beautiful area here in the city for not only their own enjoyment, but for the enjoyment of the public. So I think I've missed some of the dedication. Some of the things came up while I was in the hospital and wasn't able to ever say thank you before, so I thought I'd say thank you now.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Michael Lindsay.
Yes, I just want to say that Stevens Street and Chelmsford Street is really one of the gateways into the city, and that is a beautiful park with lots of colorful flowers and things. It's well maintained, and I think once again this is a very generous gift that Mr. Coburn has made for us to take advantage of here.
I'd like to just say a few words about Mr. Coburn. I was there the day that park was dedicated, yes. And Mr. Coburn is not just a great philanthropist. He was a statesman, a gentleman, and he certainly carried himself well. And his speech at that dedication was remarkable. And the $2,900 gift to bring irrigation to the park, we can't thank him enough. So any other discussion on this particular?
Yes.
Councilor Rita.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, was at that dedication as well, and it's one thing to come forward and try to beautify a neighborhood, and we do one park at a time, and it does enhance neighborhoods, as that Coburn Park absolutely does. But to know that it's named after your family, and then to come forward and not just say, could you beautify it, could you get the Parks Department to clean it or whatever, they're actually putting the money to do that. And so there's another fine example of people in the city not just asking for something, but putting their money behind it, because our funds are short, and they know that, and they're helping in that way. And I've been by it so many times this week, and it's simply spectacular. So I want to thank that family very much.
I want to thank Mr. Marchand for being here and giving those excellent words for Mr. Coburn. Any other discussion? If not, roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Councilor Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Moving on with the agenda, communication from City Manager and DPD Address Council regarding form-based codes, and Judge Parokis has been very patient sitting there in this very warm chamber. And Judge Parokis, if you want to come in and... Sure, come, anything you like.
Thank you. This is a version of a some description that I provided for people interested in what is going on in the process of bringing the Hamilton Canal District project to fruition. At this point, we are working with the developers at Hamilton Canal in the process of trying to develop a form-based code. This is something that will be coming forward to the council in the foreseeable future. And it's something that looks and feels a little different than typical zoning and subdivision regulations. So at the request of Councilor Milanazzo, I was asked to come forward and provide the council with some background on this so that you have the opportunity to be a little bit more familiar with this package when it comes forward to you in the near future. So I want to basically provide this background by explaining a little bit about how we got to form-based codes as a solution, so where our challenges have been with the concept of traditional zoning, and why it has had some shortcomings that have caused people to move towards form-based codes as a solution, and why it fits very well for a project like Hamilton Canal. People will tell you, architects will tell you that form follows function, but reality, architects who work in most communities dealing with zoning codes really tell you that form follows regulation, and whatever rules we set up, building form and building design and projects follow that direction. So while we have attempted to look at the idea that New England has its communities with everything from its small towns to its cities like Lowell, and that there's a lot of nice things about New England communities that people want to try to copy and emulate. In reality, oftentimes, although you may have the New England small town in the New England village, our zoning codes today don't encourage the New England village as much as they encourage the little village discount mall. And although we may be looking to try to create a walkable neighborhood community, if our zoning code requires us to do seas of parking in front of a strip mall type design, that's the right form that we're going to get, not necessarily what we are looking for. And in reality, a lot of times we look at, communities like to have a neighborhood that's walkable, a little corner store that you can walk to, and a lot of neighborhoods in Lowell do. But zoning codes of today often encourage the corner store to look very different with the 85-foot curb cut and the 7 parking spaces in front, really disconnecting the pedestrian experience from the corner store. And an example, as we all know in Lowell, while we may try to regulate, as our pre-2003 zoning code did, to encourage something like the townhouse or row house like typically occurs in Boston's Back Bay or South End, if we don't quite get the form and the details right, the projects that we were getting weren't quite what we wanted, and a number of things in our 2004 code attempted to address that. So we've watched over time how regulation has taken us from an experience where we've had these New England walkable community neighborhoods with places like the House of Seven Gables in Salem, sort of moving through to colonial communities like the streets of Newburyport, to the neighborhoods developed in Lowell in the 1920s and 30s and 40s that are more walkable traditional neighborhoods. And then somewhere we lost our direction. And the result of losing our direction is that people built things that really were completely disconnected with what was around it. And the result of that is people got very scared of density. The solution for most communities to density has been to zone things for 2 or 3 or 4 acre lots and spread across the community, sort of protecting ourselves from the possibility of what may be next to us. And the end result of that is, while we still may get 7 gable houses, and you can count them, they're all there on that picture, it's not exactly like what we used to have in Salem. So we look at what is zoning, what is the traditional land use regulation that has led us to where we're going. And we know this, it's the regulation of land use, bulk, and density. It requires development within different zones where similar activities are allowed or not allowed, usually identifies setbacks. It establishes a program for site plan review, special permits, variances, where there are boards set up to be able to address what can and cannot be varied. It tends to emphasize regulation on use. Where it regulates density, it doesn't always address how that density relates to the building form. It has a tough time balancing the difference between certainty and flexibility. That's a careful balance in the necessity to make a code work. And it's very difficult to change. Although Lowell was, this council was very bold in 2004 and willing to take the opportunity to do a significant zoning change, a lot of places aren't willing to do it because as a lot of new zoning codes don't answer the, well, what will it look like question when that change occurs. Wrapped on top of zoning, we have all of these other regulations, wetlands, floodplains, building codes that also regulate how the world looks and how development looks. And zoning itself has all these existing tools like uses, setback, open space that we try to make work the best we can, but often fail us. And I want to use an example of just a couple of ways that conventional zoning, particularly in communities that haven't updated it in a long time, can fail us. And the example I have first is from a community in California that listed the allowed uses in a given district. And the real question is, what public policy goal was somebody trying to accomplish by doing this when they listed 235 uses that are allowed in a zoning code? And number 19 on the list is baths, Turkish. Number 25 is boxing arena. Now, if you want to do an arena for any other purpose, you have to find another zoning district to do it. Chinchillas, retail sales, I want to stress that wholesale chinchilla sales would not be allowed in this district. I'm not really sure what that is. Embalming business. Number 95 is not defined anywhere in the code, so if you can try to claim you're a physical culture institution, then go ahead. You can manufacture potato chips, but not much of anything else. Retail sales of tombstones, again, not wholesale. And just in case number 19 wasn't clear enough, number 135 on the list is, well, I guess they really liked their Turkish baths. We regulate open space, and a lot of times zoning codes will regulate quantity of open space, and say you have to have a certain amount of open space. And you imagine that what you might get with open space is the New England town green or something like that. But just as likely, you could get the berm between the parking lot and the sidewalk, or, you know, for all we know, that was met someone's open space requirement in zoning, but doesn't really add much. We regulate the quantity of parking, but often not how it relates to everything else, so that often 3/4 of lots are parking, and there isn't much of an opportunity to get around any other way except for driving. And we regulate streets, oftentimes the width of streets, so that we can drive 3 fire trucks down them at the same time at full speed, but we often don't establish how that really creates an opportunity for people to use these streets in any other way. And density regulations are the ones that fail us the most. I mean, you can regulate density and say, I want 15 units per acre and expect you're going to get these courtyard buildings like were created in this community in Ohio, but you could just as likely get this that's at the same density without much green space at all. And at 20 or so units per acre, you could try to get Beacon Hill in Boston, but you might get this project in Tampa that's the same density, but it sure doesn't feel like Beacon Hill. And the result of all of these failures of all of these codes are that it generates a lot of opposition, generates the not in my backyard syndrome, and brings out the people they call the NIMBYs, trying to stop anything from being developed because they're worried about the density, they're worried about what these projects are going to look like. And if the NIMBYs aren't tough enough, there's the group that usually follows them, the cave people, the citizens against virtually everything. So it begs a question, can a land use regulation system actually reflect the character that you want in a development project? And we looked at the form-based code, and I'm going to briefly go through these steps of what it does differently and how it works, because it flips a lot of the regular issues of zoning on their head and does them in a completely different way. If you consider each of these boxes as if they're the amount of text and version of a code that actually reflects a certain thing, conventional zoning puts half the code in what the use is. Management and process is a significant portion of it, and then we allocate a small area over here to say you got a 30-foot front yard setback, and we sort of move on from there. Form-based code tends to flip that and focus a lot more energy on building form and where and how buildings relate to the neighborhood and the streets, while having less of an issue of what's going on behind those walls. Typically, they're developed through a public participation process, like a charrette process, like what we've been undergoing with Hamilton Canal. They work differently because they focus on form instead of density and use. They tend to be more appropriate in mixed-use neighborhoods, although they work in areas of single use as well. They relate more to streetscape and design and public realm. And they're designed in such a way that the upfront public participation when you create the code and the reviews that would be done by a planning board and a city council when the code is created limit the need for additional discretionary review of individual projects, where every project has to be a special permit or every project needs a variance. So it attempts to address a lot of that issue up front. Typically, communities use this concept called the transect to try to address this, which runs from kind of natural zone to urban zone. Hamilton Canal's probably in that sort of T5, that middle to more urban category. And the idea is that everything from the streets to the buildings to the open space to everything else is calibrated for how urban or suburban a given project is going to be. To some extent, the 04 zoning code that we worked with the council and the zoning subcommittee spent a lot of time working with is somewhat of a transect-based zone because our code, because our traditional districts are in that T4 sort of category and our suburban districts are in that T3 category, and it follows that type of a pattern. But a full form-based code uses a completely different set of documentation than the typical setbacks, open space, parking, subdivision standards. They have a different set of names and a different set of concepts, but they achieve the same type of regulation. Very briefly, it usually starts with a regulating plan that's like a zoning map, and it can go lot by lot or zone by zone, or some of them actually go based upon what street you front on, and that leads you to what other rules you would then have to follow. So you reference the plan and figure out where your lot is and then decide what rules you'd have to follow. Street standards tend to be visual cross-sections of streets showing pedestrian zones and street trees and laying out on a single page how an individual street would be designed. Open space standards usually don't tell you exactly how to design a park or an open space, but gives you some guidance. They can look something like this that can identify a site and what can work, or here's one that's a little bit more in color with sort of outlining some of the basic parameters of how a park would need to be developed. Something called functional design standards, which is sort of the design basis of how a building and a street meet each other. Should it have a certain number of doors or windows, or as you walk along that street, is there landscaping, is there parking right there, and how that connection works. And then building forms, which typically try to provide all of the information you would need to do to develop a building on a given site on a single sheet of paper. Either something like this that lays out height and siting and elements all together so that you can look at all that information and key it back to a certain page on that regulating plan. This is something that looks a little bit different from a different code that identifies a given site and exactly how you can lay out arcades and number of stories and heights, to even being able to use them on sites where you're restoring historic buildings. To explain how it's approved and administered, and this is what we'll see as Hamilton Canal comes forward, is the typical approval process would be like a zoning change. It would come first to the planning board, and the planning board would look at both subdivision standards, which are the street standards, for an approval for an amendment to the subdivision standards for this particular area, as well as a recommendation on a zoning change, and that zoning change recommendation would then come forward to the council. Council would, with that recommendation, have a full public hearing as any other zoning change, but the document itself would look a little bit different because it would have all of these graphical standards built into the document as part of the actual regulations that would be approved on that day. Major public review of the objectives of the project occur at the code development level with less need for scrutinizing the individual project applications. So the idea is that most projects that are consistent with the code are by right development. Subdivision review occurs on an individual section of a project, but once that's done, that can move forward as well. Site development projects usually require some sort of administrative review with a certificate that you're consistent with the code, and then special permits may be appropriate for deviations from the letter of it, where there's a situation where there's something we don't anticipate today, but down the road a developer 5 years from now says, gee, for this reason or that, we have to make an adjustment. It's used in a number of places across the country. It has been used in Massachusetts at the South Weymouth Naval Air Station. There's been talk about it in other places. The smart growth districts in Brockton and Kingston have a lot of elements of it. I would say that particularly the traditional districts of our existing zoning code actually have a lot of elements of it. But you can see there are a number of towns across the country that have really gotten deep into doing a full form-based code. And I like to finish with these quotes that have come from across other places where people have looked at these from a number of different perspectives, where the city's perspective that they like a form-based code because it shortens review time for projects and gives developers a better idea of what the city requires. That the banking community, form-based codes provide consistency of how neighboring projects will be improved so that there's no surprises to what your neighbor can do later. Home builders, that it's an easy way to facilitate projects for municipalities to conduct and complete an environmental review, establish desired land use, prescribe design guidelines, and expedite the application review. So there's no surprises to them either in terms of what's being developed. And my own favorite from the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, we can't tell if a form-based code is a radical green left-wing document or a developer-friendly market-based right-wing one, which sums up the idea of how it attempts to address issues across assisting with providing certainty to development, but also providing certainty to neighbors to know what will occur around them as a project goes forward. So we see it as an interesting and more successful way to implement a master plan and expedite a permitting process for a project going forward. And we look forward to working with you on one in Lowell in the near future.
George Paroikis, that was an excellent presentation. Is there any questions?
Thank you.
Excellent. Council Milonazo, Council Martin, and Council Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to thank George and the city manager for putting this presentation together. This did come out as a result of a meeting that I did attend in the mayor's reception room, where we did have a number of businesses and residents from the Hamilton Canal District. They did attend the charrette on the form-based zoning code, and I just thought it would be important for us to at least get a sense as to what the form-based zoning code is about, so that as we go forward with the approval of the Hamilton Canal project, we would have a basis of reference, if you will, for that. And I think that even though we did get the Reader's Digest version, I think it was full of good information that we can we can move forward with. Again, I don't know if we have this presentation in any written form, that if a council wanted to get a copy of some of this information, not necessarily tonight, that we could have that forwarded to us, for information.
Certainly.
Thank you, Council Martin.
Thank you. Well done, George. I just wanted, I left home tonight. I thought I knew everything there was to know about zoning, so I guess that's not the case. But what's our plan, Mr. Manager, going forward on something like this? Do we have a time frame, or is this part of the development agreement with the Hamilton Canal folks, or?
It is part of the development plan for the Hamilton Canal development. Perhaps Mr. Bakey can talk to the actual timetable that we're looking at, but certainly when this project was initiated, or as it's moved forward, the use of form-based zoning has been really the concept that we had in mind, particularly as we went through the charrette process, as people gave us some sense of the types of buildings that they want, the scale of the buildings, the types of public space that they want. And we're right now in the middle of hammering out the final details on the disposition agreement, but simultaneous to that, we're gathering information, discussing the form-based zoning. Adam, what is the time frame that we're looking at in terms of the schedule for this?
Sure. Yeah. We have been working closely with Trinity and their consultants, as well as the public, to develop the form-based code. At this point, we're hoping to have a complete package of the form-based code, which would include both subdivision regulations as well as zoning for the Hamilton Canal District, that would be presented to the council probably sometime in August or early in the fall. And then it would go through the typical process of adopting a zoning change. So there would be referral to public hearings and so forth before any final action would be taken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Martin. Council Kazanjian?
Thank you, Mayor. This is primarily for the Hamilton Canal District. Is that plus also subdivisions? Is that correct?
This would, even the subdivision section would only apply to subdivisions applied within the Hamilton Canal District. So the entire process for this particular, to use the form-based code, is for the Hamilton Canal District alone.
All right. I know you mentioned setbacks, green space, and things like that. That's going to be for the Hamilton Canal District.
Right.
I'm sure we're going to get that before we vote on some issues, what the setbacks are going to be, how much green space we're going to have, and things like that.
Right, all of that would be packaged in the draft of the code.
Okay.
Both there's standards for each individual development site that describes how all of that will work, as well as a number of open spaces with direction for how much green and how that.
How about the style of the homes? You mentioned Salem, Mass. I mean, is that what you're trying to put houses from Salem, Mass. here in Lowell?
I kind of jumped over it a little quick. Some form-based codes have an architectural section in them that address style of buildings. We've elected not to include such a section in here. We're focusing much more on sort of the bulk of the building and how it sort of meets the street and addresses the pedestrian. Whether it's a more traditional or a more modern or a more contemporary type of look is really something that's going to be addressed on a project-by-project basis. The entire district is within the historic district, so they all are going to have to go before the Lowell Historic Board that does review that level of detail. We didn't see a need to put anything of that sort in the code and either try to address their standards or worry about contradicting with their standards, so it was easier to just not address
I would like to maintain what we have here in the city instead of going out to Salem, Mass. I know you mentioned that, so.
Absolutely. I certainly understand it. The strategy is that it would be a logical extension of downtown Lowell, and we've been working to try to do that all along. My examples from all over are only meant to establish that it is a concept that can be addressed in a number of different contexts, in a number of different places, but certainly each individual one of these codes has to be unique to the city in which it is developed and has to reflect the city in which it's developed. And Lowell's code will reflect Lowell. It would look nothing like a form-based code would in another community.
Okay.
Sure.
Manager Lynch?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just in response to Councilor Kazanjian, just one point. One of the ideas that Councilor Kazanjian brought forward some time ago was reaching out into the architectural community as we look at this project. And this, as I think I indicated at that time, I believe Mr. Bakey did as well, that this is the form-based zone code is really a great opportunity to draw upon their level of expertise, as well as the sense of what the people of the city of Lowell want. And that's been generated through the charrette process, but we made a specific request of the architectural community to participate in this form-based zone code, or these concepts, and they've been participating in that as well. So.
Okay, great. Right.
Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Great job, George. I know you were trying to show the contrast there, and maybe you could update everybody. There has been one charrette for the form-based zone, and I attended it, and it was well attended. I was surprised, actually. It was 75 people or so, and it was actually a breakdown of each individual parcel, and it was kind of amazing to see how it's all being brought together. But I think it's an important issue to find out how is that going to be brought to the council, and as chairman of the zoning subcommittee, I don't know if it would be a good idea to try and keep us up to speed. So it's going to be a lot of information. And just that one meeting, I was kind of surprised. And what is it, 14 parcels?
I think there's 14 of them are development parcels, and
yeah,
then there are 3 open space parcels.
And it's going to be individualized somewhat. You're talking about open space and sidewalks, and they were talking about where benches would go and everything. So it was pretty amazing what you guys are putting together, but it might make sense to, is there also a follow-up in August, were they saying, on the charrette?
I'll let Adam.
Ultimately, the charrette and working group process is an ongoing one. We've actually had several working group meetings, as well as the formal charrette event that you attended on specifically the form-based code. And we would actually welcome the input of the council in terms of what type of a process you would like to use to bring this forward to the council. If you'd like to have us take this up at a subcommittee meeting, we'd be more than happy to bring a discussion of it at that level. We can really work on it in any manner that the council wishes.
I mean, it's up to the body, but I think it might make sense as you get things together and you start seeing some definition there that that you're bringing in either at the full body like this or a subcommittee, whatever makes sense, and keep people up to speed so we don't have to try and cram it all in for an exam. You know what I mean? It might make sense to kind of keep us in the loop. Thank you. But good job. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, if it's possible, to have a subcommittee. It'd be great. Give us some more information, then we can bring it to the full body.
Right. I think the key is information, as Councilor Broderick indicated. Right. It's information.
Thank you.
And before I have a motion to accept the communication, I just want to say that Manager Lynch and I, DPD, we're out there all the time welcoming new businesses, and I can't begin to tell you how many new businesses are coming into the city praising Adam Backey and Judge Perokas and everyone at DPD, because they are out there. They're making it happen. And they should be congratulated. And Judge, this is a great presentation you showed the council tonight. Thank you. Motion to accept the communication placed on file by Council Milanazzo, seconded by Council Rita Mercy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's placed on file. Accepted. Constable Bond, Giovanni Blow East, 20 Bradford Avenue, Bradford. Any discussion, any debate? If none, roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lindsay.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Armand Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expend a grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, the amount of $94,159 for the continued employment of staff, as well as funding for various supplies, furnishings, and equipment for use by the Council on Aging. Motion to waive the full reading by Council Broderick, seconded by Council Lindsay. All in favor, waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Full reading has been waived, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the city of Lowell to apply for, accept, and expand a grant from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, the amount of $94,159 for the continued employment of staff, as well as funding of various supplies, furnishings, and equipment for the use by the Council on Aging. Any questions? Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Order to vacate, discontinue, and abandon certain public interest rights and easements in West Jackson Street, King Street, and portion of Jackson Street in the city of Lowell. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Martin, second by Councilor Arman Mercia. All in favor of waiving the full reading, second reading by title, to vacate, discontinue, abandon certain public interest rights and easements in West Jackson Street, King Street, and portion of Jackson Street in the city of Lowell. This will be going to a public hearing August 12th. All in favor, send this to a public hearing August 12th. Signify by saying aye. It's on its way. Okay. Moving on with the agenda. Authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell City and Monkeys Incorporated for use of a portion of city property adjacent to the premises at 66 Merrimack Street, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Kazandjian. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The full reading has been waived. Second reading by title. Authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell City and Monkeys Incorporated for use of a portion of city property adjacent to the premises of 66 Merrimack Street, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Any debate, any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi. Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Mayor?
Yes,
I
Councilor.
apologize, but I have a question on the last item regarding abandoning a portion of Jackson and West Jackson and King Street.
Yes.
I believe we had indicated to DCAM that that public hearing would be in 2 weeks and not a month.
Well,
What date did I give?
You gave us August 12th.
It's,
As opposed to
it's asked for
July
Ju-
20, as
yeah,
opposed to July
July
22nd.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the date I have down here, so.
The letter from the administration indicated July 22nd.
Okay. I was just testing you.
July 22nd.
Public hearing is July 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
All right, moving on with the agenda. Authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell City and Mr. Jalapeno Incorporated for use of a portion of city property adjacent to the premises at 124 Merrimack Street, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Broderick, second by Councilor Elliott. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Full reading has been waived. Second reading by title. Authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell City and Mr. Jalapeno Incorporated for use of a portion of city property adjacent to the premises at 124 Merrimack Street, Lowell, for the purpose of sidewalk seating. Any discussion, any debate? Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazandrian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
An ordinance creating 2 new grant-funded positions and establishing the salaries thereof in the Health Department. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Arman Mercia, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia. All in favor of waiving the full reading, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The full reading's been waived. Second reading by title. An ordinance creating 2 new grant-funded positions and establishing the salaries therefore in the Health Department. Public hearing is slated for July 22nd. Any discussion? Any debate? Councilor Kazandjian.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. That's going to be grant money only for these 2 individuals, and they're aware of that once the grant runs out, that...
Yes, Councilor, these are the positions that you recall at the last meeting, there was a grant that the city obtained for substance abuse programs.
Okay, right, okay.
These are
All
the
right.
positions that go with that.
All right.
And I would point you to at the top of the second page there, if I could just read it, the above positions and salaries created by this ordinance shall be filled only when the necessary funds for said positions have been appropriated, and said positions and salaries shall be eliminated when said funds are no longer available.
Great,
So
okay,
it's
thank
very
you. Okay.
expressive.
Any other questions? Let's go into a public hearing, July 22nd. The next, number 15 on the agenda has been withdrawn temporarily, okay? Any subcommittee reports? Subcommittee reports? Councilor Kazanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. This is on the ARETA subcommittee we had last week, referring to the Dropkick Murphys concert. The subcommittee members and the city manager and also the city solicitor met. Unfortunately, Mr. Weber could not make it. I guess he was out of town. But first of all, I want to thank Christine O'Connor for all her hard work on this matter and other matters she's done. She's done a great job, and I have the utmost respect for her and Dave Fenton, Tom Sweeney, and the rest of our team. And even though we differ in opinions every once in a while, like I said, I do have the utmost respect for her. Mr. Manager, you said that you're going to speak with Mr. Weber, and you're kind of like close to coming to some type of deal. Can you?
I don't have anything additional to report tonight, but the discussions did take place last week. We had some continued discussions, and over the last couple of days, we've traded phone calls, but have not caught up with one another. But we are continuing to have discussions.
All right, then you'll.
And as soon as we get information, I'll supply that to the council.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had notified the clerk. I apologize. I wasn't at the meeting, but I didn't receive my notice until the day after. There must have been a problem with the mail, and I had mentioned it to the clerk and asked if we could maybe get those sent electronically by email. So I wanted to, because I had that discussion, I wanted to let everyone know that. You know, my absence was not intentional, but I just want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you. I just wanted to notify the public that we did have a joint meeting of the Housing and Neighborhood Subcommittee last Tuesday. In attendance was Councilor Alan Kazanjian as chairman of the Neighborhood Subcommittee, Rita Mercier, Kevin Broderick, and Bill Martin and myself to discuss the ordinance that was approved this evening. So I just again want to acknowledge the fact that we did have the meeting and appreciate their support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other?
Except both. Whoops.
Let me do this. Accept the report from Councilor Kazanjian and Councilor Milonazo.
Well, I wanted to speak on that, Mayor. I wanted, as a member of that subcommittee.
On the same motion? Okay.
On the subcommittee report, and it was a good meeting, and it was, the issue was explained very thoroughly on I think it was last Wednesday morning. But I think what was interesting to note, or I learned from the subcommittee, is that it's actually the producers that's making most of the money. Mr. Weber is drawing his revenue from the concessions and novelties. And of course, the manager was clear. I mean, the contract expires this year with the spinners, which I guess the promoter, did we get clarification that the promoter is the individual that will be, you know, making the money on the ticket sales, which, you know, I think the simple calculation was, you know, 300,000, 350,000 plus, which I don't know how, or we can adjust that in the future contract, but clearly that's something that we need to clarify. And Councilor Kazanjian mentioned at the subcommittee, and Councilor Lindsay as well. It's not so much about, you know, Mr. Weber. He's doing his business. It's just protecting the taxpayers, and I know the manager was clear that, you know, he agrees, and we're going to try to tighten that up in the future. So is that the case, Mr. Manager, that, you know, the promoter, they're doing concerts in 3 of the Red Sox communities? I'm sorry, I keep asking a question and answering my own question, but is that the case?
Yes. It's our understanding that based on the information that we've obtained, the Spinners organization essentially will be splitting the concessions, and that's their sole source of income or revenue from this, and the actual ticket, the costs associated with the concert, and the ticket revenue are handled by the promoter and obviously the Dropkick Murphys. So. But again, I think this is something that, and all the risk associated with that. Now, I do anticipate, based on the track record that the Dropkick Murphys had here last March, that they'll do very well, and they'll sell the tickets, and there'll be some money to be made there by the promoter and by the band. But the Spinners organization is only participating in the concession sales, is our understanding.
I did have one follow-up question. Is there a permit process when any other organization wants to, I don't know, hold an activity, or there's certain police requirements, there are certain, there are certain public safety issues that they have to address. Is that a permit process? And just want to make sure that, the city's not absorbing that cost, and maybe the promoter or...
That's a great question, and that's in this particular case, the Spinners were required to go through the permit process with the inspectional services and the fire department. It was determined that they in fact needed a second form of or an additional form of egress, and they did bear the costs of providing that additional form of egress, which in the long run will benefit the city, because that additional form of egress provides new access to bring equipment onto into the stadium for maintaining the stadium.
Thank you.
Councilor Kazanjian?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I know we have other vendors or individuals making money on this, whether it's the Red Sox or Dropkick Murphy or whatever the case may be. Like I said before, we have someone coming into our city making $450,000 and leaving, and we're not getting a dime out of it. So I hope Mr. Weber, who's been good to the city, and the city's been good to him over the years, in good faith, will do something very responsible and come up with some type of monies for the city, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah,
Thank you.
again, Mr. Mayor and councilors, as I mentioned to the subcommittee, and Councilor Kazanjian raised these issues, and these have been discussions that have been ongoing with the Spinners since we first learned about this. Obviously, the sort of the overriding issue that has been the focus of much of the discussion is preparing for the next lease of the facility. But I'm optimistic that Mr. Weber will, and the Spinners organization will. They seem to have a clear understanding, based upon the conversations that have been taking place, that there are costs being absorbed by the city, and the city should certainly be made whole, or as close to whole as possible. It's certainly a benefit to the city to have an event like this taking place here, but at the same time, there are costs that go with this, and we should realize some of those. And
Exactly. Again, the taxpayers are paying for it, and we always take the beating. So we want something out of it. Thank you.
Any other discussion on yes, Councilor Lindsay?
As far as the event goes, there's no fee for using the location that is paid for to the Spinners by Dropkick Murphys or the producer of the show. There's no fee for the location. No.
What we've been told is that essentially this is a venture that's been the information we've obtained is this is a venture that's taking place, and the Spinners see this as an opportunity to promote their site that they've been leasing from the city, and their participation is strictly in the concessions that would come from this.
So if someone went to Fenway Park or the arena, they would pay for the facility.
Absolutely.
But in this case, no one's paying for the facility.
Right. I think in some cases I think every situation is different. I think what you've described, Councilor, is the standard, that if you go in and use a facility, you're going to pay a set amount of money for the use of the facility. I know it's standard practice in many venues that you pay a small flat fee for the use of the hall or the use of the venue, and then the facility really makes their revenue from the concessions that take place there. But in this particular case, it's not my understanding there's no fee that's going to the Spinners organization.
Councilor Rita Misch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With this particular issue of the Spinners, I see a situation here whereby many years ago we gave people a chance. We didn't know if it would work or it didn't work or whatever, and we found through the years that it's working, and I'm glad. We're thrilled. We don't want to hurt anybody. And now we have a situation whereby an event is going to take place, and Councilor checked it out to see if, maybe he read it and interpreted it a way that we thought it was interpreted, and I give them all the credit for trying. We got a ruling from the solicitor that says, well, actually, we can't collect anything on it. But I look at the whole picture and I say to myself, I don't want to hurt anybody and, make their life miserable and try to cash in on their success. But at the same time, I represent the city of Lowell here. I represent people that are struggling, and we have a venue in the city that is making it. And I just want a little bit of that pie. And I think that's what the whole deal is here. So that maybe we did get a ruling that, gee whiz, we didn't luck out on it. We didn't get excited about it or gain anything by it. But maybe that's a blessing in disguise that we can put that into the next contract, that maybe if they have another event, irregardless of their venue, but an extra, and on top of it, something else, then maybe we can take part in getting a little bit of that pie as well. So I think goodness came out of that. So that's my
I would
opinion.
venture to say that the new contract that the manager Lynch is going to negotiate will have all those clauses in that contract, and we'll be much better off. So, a motion to accept the report that was brought forward by Councilor Kazanjian and Councilor Milonazo, accept the report and place it on file by Councilor Rita Mercia, seconded by Councilor Armin Mercia. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? They have been accepted and put on file. On petitions, Bazek Realty Trust, 1020 Concord Street, request 6 30-minute parking signs. Carmen Rodriguez, 1022 Central Street, request a handicap parking sign. Chaliz Guadalupe, 725 Lawrence Street, request a handicap parking sign. Francisco Canseco, 854 Central Street, request a handicap parking sign. Referred it to the traffic engineer by Councilor Armin Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. They're on the way. Claims. 2 claims, 1 property damage, 1 personal injury. Excuse me? No, that's been withdrawn. I'm sorry. That's been withdrawn. I apologize for not letting you know that. 2 claims, 1 property damage, 1 personal injury, referred to Law Department by Councilor Lindsay, seconded by Councilor Kazanjian. Pole location, National Grid, pole location, Andover Street. Hearing will be July 22nd. All in favor, send that to a public hearing, signify by saying aye. That's on its way to a public hearing. Motions. Motion by Councilor Rita Mercia. City Council requests the city manager have the proper department paint and repaint the crosswalks in Couple Square. Seconded by Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councilor Armin Mercia says, the motion speaks for itself. It's a rather hot night. But through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, please, I know that they're doing crosswalks. Probably the paint is put away. I don't know. But if we could have John Cooper and the crew go over there to Couple Square. There's a lot of seniors that live in that neighborhood, immediate neighborhood, and they've asked if I could please bring that up for their own safety, because it's kind of congested and it's a dense neighborhood, and I need them to be safe. Thank you.
Could I just add to that, Councilor?
Sure.
Paint all the crosswalks in the city that need to be painted. So.
Yeah, can we start at Couple Square, though?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on with the agenda. Motion by Councilor Elliott, request the City Council Arena Subcommittee meet with the City Manager and the Arena Commission relative to the projected deficit for fiscal 2009, seconded by Councilor Kazanjian. On the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion does, very similar. It speaks for itself, but while we're meeting at the subcommittee meeting, clearly receipts and expenses come out of the enterprise fund for the, for both the arena and the ballpark, and we all know it's running a deficit. So, just thought it was important to, and as we were going through the budget, I was looking, where the structural deficits, where are the, the pockets that. Revenues are covering expenses, and we're looking at that huge deficit with garbage, and here is another big drain on resources that's being covered by not the venue itself, but by taxpayers. So I'd like to have the subcommittee meet get an update from the manager. We have had a subcommittee, but where is this going? What can we do? What measures have the manager and the Arena Commission taken or looking at, whether it's, I know there's been discussion of signage and new contracts and concession contracts. So just, want to stay on top of it. And I'm sure you are, Mr. Manager, but I just think it's important to get a discussion and continue the dialogue to work on that deficit that is, we looked at that budget and you took $6 million out of the request from department heads, and it's, one of the tightest budgets we have, but here we are, we're looking $1 million, $1.2 million. That's just going to fund the arena that, supposed to at least break even, and over a period of time it continues to collect debt. I mean, and that dollar figure is just operational, operation of the arena. It's not, and it's not debt or interest, nor is it, we haven't put, there clearly is some issues over there that warrant capital investment, and we don't have money to meet the bottom line, never mind things that inevitably need to be reinvested in. So that's the motion, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Alan Kasanjian.
Thank you, Mayor. It was a great motion brought up by Councilor Elliott. We definitely have to do something with the arena. We're losing $1.2 million per year. SMG doesn't seem to be doing the job. I'm not sure if Craig Gates' hands are tied and can only do so much, but they blame in hockey where they can't have the functions. It's always the excuse that hockey's around and we can't have our functions. Hockey's been done for about 3 months. We haven't had one major function in 3 months there. What's their excuse now? I know now it's too late in the summertime. Nobody really wants to go to a major function in the summertime, but springtime's a good time to have some type of major concert, a major function there. And nothing's been done. It's a joke. And I know their contract's coming up, and right now our hands are tied, but we really have to get to the bottom of this, and I know we have problems with the Devils, and the Devils are promising this and that, and again, they're not coming through, but we have to bring this to the arena subcommittee and see if we can get the bottom of this and find out where these new contracts are coming from, and where we can get the revenue to support this.
Councilor, you're right on, because if you look at Boston Garden and the arena up in Manchester, those venues are going constantly, and the arena in Worcester as well. Council Lindsay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we also invite the Chancellor to this subcommittee meeting and have, some candid discussion about, what the university can do to either use the facility more or just put everything on the table, because seems like it's a little bit drawn out and we keep putting it to the side. But I think if we get all the parties involved and hammer this out, with some real candid conversation about the arena, that maybe we can push this forward a little bit and make some decisions forthcoming.
That's up to the jurisdiction of the subcommittee. You can invite anyone you'd like.
Yeah, also not the arena subcommittee, but the Jack Costello and that group arena commission, if they can come also give us some input, see where they're coming from, and
I think it's important to get everyone
correct
at the table. Councilor Broderick?
I think it's a good motion, and I think we need to find out what's going on or what's in the works, hopefully something that's going to change for the positive. But I think we have to be careful I don't think we necessarily have jurisdiction. I know we have authority over global decisions, but I think if there's negotiations or things going on, I don't know, I can ask the solicitor if there's a potential there for a problem bringing into a subcommittee meeting the Arena Commission, and the manager. I know I asked this question before, who has the authority to negotiate, who's supposed to be negotiating, if can we involve ourselves in that? And I'm not saying we should definitely get a report and find out, be brought up to speed what's going on, and maybe the manager can tell us in the subcommittee what the city is looking to try to accomplish in the Arena Commission and so on. But I just want to caution, or I guess I want to ask if we should be cautioned that bringing these people in and if they're in negotiations or something that's not our jurisdiction.
Right. Again, it's certainly a worthwhile area of inquiry on the part of the council. As far as far as the timing of it, the Arena Commission is in the process of negotiations with SMG right now. And while obviously none of those discussions can be revealed publicly, some of what the council is currently talking about are things that are being debated about and addressed by members of the Arena Commission. Obviously, the deficit is a concern of the commission as it is of the council, and as it is, I'm sure, of the university, even though they're not an owner. But yeah, there are areas that right now are sensitive in terms of what's going on with respect to ongoing contract negotiations, which will be finalized in the upcoming month.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's a good idea to have a subcommittee meeting or get some report as to what's going on, but I think that, you know, with the solicitor's guidance, maybe, you know, we can do that without having a problem.
I think the gist of the motion is to get everyone at the table, find out what are you scheduling at that facility, and bring some revenue in. And I think that's the gist of the motion.
Yeah, well, I think it's like I said, I think it's a good motion. I think we should get the information to find out, you know, why are there no concerts? Is there no, you know,
Right.
I think the season's over, you know, in the summertime, the auditorium, the arena, you know, basically shut down. But I think that if we start talking further into contracts and
I
things...
don't think we're going to go that route, so. Council Kazanjian and Council
Thank you, Mayor.
Manager
Yeah,
Lynch.
exactly. We're not going to go into
No.
contracts.
No.
We just want to find out why the jobs aren't being done the way they're supposed to be done. You know, concerts, this, that, whatever. That's our major concerns.
Manager Lynch?
Yeah, if I could, I think that, I do think it's, Councilor Elliott's motion is a very good one in terms of bringing the Arena Commission into, and I'm always more than happy to meet with the Arena Subcommittee or any of the subcommittees to address particular issues related to the operations of city government, particularly the arena. I think that there have been some issues over there in the last number of years in terms of the operations, and it's a deficit that just continues to exist, and we really do need to find a solution to this. I do think that the work that the Arena Commission has been doing, I've been working closely with them over the last, as well as solicitor over the last few months, to craft some new standards in terms of the management contract, the concessions contract, and looking at ways at which we can expand the revenue coming into the arena to close that gap. And I think we're seeing some real progress there, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to meet with the Arena Subcommittee to talk about that, and certainly let the Arena Commission know that they've been invited. I also think that I've been having discussions, conversations with the Chancellor as well as the Athletic Director of the University on some new opportunities we may have to look at some greater participation by the university. I think there's some real opportunities there that we can expand upon. So we'll work with the Arena Subcommittee to set up that time, and I think it may have to take place over several meetings to look at all the different facets of this. But I think we're seeing some positive movement in terms of where the arena is heading. But I do agree too with the councilors that have spoken of the need to put more events in that venue. And unfortunately, we haven't seen the increase that we really need to see in order to close that gap.
Council Kazanjian, Council
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one thing. Is it possible to meet with the Arena Commission in executive session and go over the contracts and find out what their thoughts are? Is that legal? Is that something we can do?
It would be. The only issue that springs to mind right now is actually one of jurisdiction. The way it's supposed to play out is that the Arena Commission would negotiate the contract. I suppose, and then the council eventually approves it. It may be possible to have some sort of a meeting like that, so that the Arena Commission would at least know what types of concerns that the council has, because again, ultimately, this is a contract that will come to you for final approval.
If we can sit down in the room with them, the same room, and go over this whole thing and final concerns they have and we have, maybe we can.
Yeah,
we'll
and
have
again,
better
they're
thoughts.
looking, without getting into any detail, but they're not only looking at ways of expanding the budget, in terms of, or expanding revenue, but also ways of budget control and budget implementation.
Is that something we have to check into, or is that?
No, I think we can work with the Arena Commission to do that. And again, I think the solicitor describing the ways we're looking at, and I've been working closely with them on this in terms of looking at the different revenue options that are out there, as well as there has to be better budget oversight that has existed, and there's language the solicitor has been working with in terms of the new management contract to ensure that the type of reporting is necessary, the oversight is there, but I think that we can work to bring the subcommittee or the entire council in on those discussions.
The entire council at that executive session,
right,
if we can. So,
Councilor Elliott, and then Councilor.
Well, I think that's the crux of what I've been looking at, in addition to getting additional revenue, is, getting oversight on expenditures and what is the incentive that we need to bring into whoever's managing it. And there are so many issues over there, and we touched on just a few of them. Whether it's, the Devils is, SMG saying there are dates, and that's an issue. The university has concerns, and, at the end of the day, and I understand, the Arena Commission has jurisdiction. At the end of the day, the buck stops right here. And when we sit and we have to, consistently look at a deficit year after year and the hit it takes on our free cash, I think it's important to get everybody into the room and find out where we're going and what we're, what we're going to do about it, what we can plan to do about it. So I think it'll be a good dialogue, and I'm not trying to get into contracts or where that's going. Just, what's our plan? What's the manager's plan? The Arena's plan on closing this deficit, and as well as infrastructure and operational issues and other costs. So, thank you. That's appreciate it.
Councilor Ahmed Mercy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question. How many RFPs requests were sent out? And is SMG the only one that responded?
SMG is the only one that responded. We did receive seven people requested the RFP, but only one response.
Only one responded. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilor Milonazo.
I guess picking up on Councilor Ahmed Mercy's point regarding SMG, can we get information as to how busy their other venues are during these summer months, as Councilor Kazanjian said, that, 3 months, hockey's been out of the arena for 3 months, but, what is going on in Worcester, where I believe they manage the arena in Worcester? What's going on in Manchester, where they manage in Manchester? Are there, in fact, concerts going on there? So are we actually competing against ourselves, so to speak, if we're not getting those types of...
I think if you get on the internet, you'll be surprised.
Right. This has been a sort of a concern of mine that we tried to work into the, and again, without venturing into ongoing negotiations that have been taking place with the Arena Commission. One of the issues that, and I know in discussing this with the Arena Subcommittee, we're looking to put some incentives in place so that if SMG, has a choice of where to put a particular concert or particular event when they're doing bookings, that they would find that Lowell would be the more lucrative for themselves to do that. But certainly, I think we can do some research on where what's happening at the other venues as well.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by...
We're just going to refer this to the Arena Subcommittee. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor? Okay, great.
Councilor Lindsay?
Just one quick question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the RFPs, is there something in there that makes SMG the only company that can apply? Is there some clause in there that knocks the other 6 competitors out, or?
No, I think it's a function of, not that I'm aware of, not that I think any of the Arena Commission or the solicitor are aware of. I think it's a function of a couple of things. One is that there aren't that many companies in this business, is one issue. The other is that it is a somewhat complex situation, particularly putting those incentives in place, and that you have to put in the levels of requirement that the university have certain conditions, or that the Devils have certain conditions, and it really makes it difficult with all of that in there, it makes it difficult for a company to come in, particularly when there are very few that are out there, to then come in and make a go of it. So, if we were just talking about an arena without any tenants in there, and a company could come in and book it at free will, without those parameters that are already in place, I think you might have more opportunities. But for the next 2 years, while the Devils are here, and with the requirements that we have for the university use of the facility, it makes it more difficult for a company to come in and make a go of it.
Councilor Elliott, this is the last.
I just wanted to ask, can we get a copy of that RFP just so we can take a look at it before that subcommittee meeting?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Moving on with the agenda. Motion by Councilor Kazanjian. Request the city manager have the proper department install curbing at 31 Westminster Street at the corner of Newbury Street, seconded by Councilor Elliott on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This house is actually 31 Westminster. It's at the corner of Westminster and Newbury Street, and its problem is actually on Newbury Street. What's happening, the water is coming down the street onto his property, and I've got some pictures here that I'll pass around. You can see it's just a lake in his yard, and I went up there the other day, and I feel that if we put some type of curbing along that property line on Newbury, I think it will solve the problem, or you can meet the engineer or DPW commissioner up there and see what thoughts they might have.
Okay. The clerk has recorded that correction. It's the corner of Newbury and what street?
It's Newbury and Westminster.
Yeah, that's right. I thought I
Yes,
said that.
right, and the address is 31 Westminster.
We,
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The next motion, the Article 26, that motion has been withdrawn, and everything is okay with that one. So on just the last motion of the evening by Councilor Kazanjian, City Council requests the city manager to report on the status of the road repairs in the vicinity of 361 Andover Street, seconded by Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, it's 361 Andover Street. I think we brought this forward about maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, and well, I'd just like to know the status is, because I've talked to the gentleman, and it's just still having the same issues over there. What we have is a paved patch on a concrete roadway. I mean, and who was responsible for doing this instead of replacing it the proper way? I mean, if you go all along Andover Street, you'll see hot top patches instead of the concrete. And I just want to know, number one, why is it being done? And what can we do to correct the problem? And especially this problem at 361 Andover Street.
Manager Lynch?
A couple of points, Councilor. I am aware, I believe it was brought up actually at a meeting that I was not at. Councilor Milanazzo actually contacted me recently regarding this issue as well, and regarding the hot top that was there was a little bit, it was unlevel. And so I know we went out and did some additional work out there. The problem we have, I think, is, and I have Assistant Manager McCarthy here to potentially to address this in greater detail. Certainly we can provide a more comprehensive report. I think if you look around the city, we have this, and it's been going on for a number of years. And it's mostly, I think, cost more than anything else. I mean, downtown we have a number of areas of cobblestone that, unfortunately, through the years, rather than the cobblestones being repaired, particularly when even when utilities went in, we allowed them to do repairs with hot top bituminous rather than repairing the cobblestones. Out on Andover Street, it's with the concrete that's there. I agree with you that it would be better if it were all concrete and not hot top from place to place. I believe that the cost estimate that Mr. McCarthy provided me with recently is that it's to replace that section of pavement, that section of concrete would cost about $31,000. which is an amazing number, particularly when that represents, I think it's about 20, that one small section represents about 25% of our road maintenance budget for the upcoming year. So we're looking at this to see if there's a better solution out there that we can find to address this, because I agree with you completely that the repairs that have been done on the roads in the city really, and I think it has been cost more than anything else, really aren't what they should be in a number of areas. One avenue that we are exploring is to see whether there may be some state money that may be available to use in that area. We do know that we can't, for instance, we can't use Chapter 90 money on that roadway for that type of repair because it doesn't meet the standards that have been set up by the state. But we're certainly looking to see what we can do in that area.
Is it something we could possibly do in-house to save us some money? Get the DPW crew out there and jackhammer the hot top up and put some concrete down to save the city some money and take care of this problem. I mean, this is unbearable for this gentleman. He's, it's bad enough with cars, but you get a truck going over it, it wakes him up in the middle of the night. Or
that's why we took out the bump that was there.
Right.
There was a bump that was there
Right.
that Councilor Milanazzo asked me what the called me to ask me what the status was recently, and we did take that out. And again, it's a case that we could probably go off there and do. And I'm not sure what the cost estimate that Mr. McCarthy has, whether that's our in-house or using outside vendors to do that. But again, even then, it would still be a large amount of money. And what it would mean is if we just stay with the existing budget that we have, we would have to cut back somewhere else in the city. A roadway may not be able to be done this year that we have planned. Or we can look at a separate appropriation, certainly as a possibility. And maybe that's the solution is on something like this is to get a cost estimate to do that and then come in with a separate appropriation order to do the
through the state. Is that
no?
It's a state road. Is that correct?
It's a state numbered road. Why don't I let Mr. McCarthy?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Manager. It is, Councilor. It is a state road, but just doing that one section, that 55-foot section, would be what they constitute regular maintenance. And that is frowned upon with using Chapter 90 money. Chapter 90 money is full construction of roadways in certain sections. I do have to say, I mean, looking back, and I lived off of Andover Street for 25 years, I can't remember the last time the city's really done some major repairs. So what we're going to propose to do is take a look at doing more, have a project that's more comprehensive and look at other areas of Andover Street. I think the last time, and it had to have been 15 years ago at least, only did the inside lanes going all the way from Button Road all the way to the Tewksbury State line. And we really need to probably take a look at the period or the section of road from maybe from Nesmith Street to Butman Road, and look at the outside lanes as well. It's probably well overdue, and I think that's where we can apply some Chapter 90 money. And again, this year's allocation, obviously, we've been holding back for the University Ave bridge repairs. As we move forward on that, we'll be able to free some limited funds to take a look at that particular issue on Andover Street, maybe get some money for design. But basically looking at about between 12 and 14 inches of concrete, a 55 by 10 section with rebar. So it's a pretty big job, even in-house. And again, with our labor, we have to take a look at trying to manage, sidewalk repairs and the rest of it with staff. So we, get the most bang for the buck. In this particular one here, we would probably contract that out.
Is it possible to contact the state reps or state senator to see if they can get some type of state funds for that roadway? Is it?
I think that's exactly what
Okay.
we were talking about with Mr. McCarthy, that either through Chapter 90 money, which is state money, but
Right, okay.
we only get a certain, that's a formula-based, to do a major project along there that we could draw upon that. A small section like that, they would not allow us. That would be ineligible. But in addition, that Chapter 90 money represents really all we spend in the city on paving. So I think, speaking to the representatives and the senator, to see what we can do about an earmark, just
For
through an
Andover
appropriation
Street,
for
right,
Andover Street.
From Nesmith Street to the Tewksbury line.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of other areas out there that are similar to this area. So.
What we are going to do is utilize some of the Chapter 90 money that we have, and I think Mr. McCarthy said this. A large chunk of our Chapter 90 money this year is going to the University Ave bridge work that needs to be done. But taking a portion of that money to bring on an engineer to do a full plan for Andover Street from Nesmith all the way back to the Tewksbury line, and based upon that cost estimate, then going off and getting necessary legislative support.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else like to, Council Martin?
If we're going to do that big a project, I mean, would the sidewalks possibly be included in that? I mean, we get those complaints all the time about sidewalks.
That will certainly be part of the overall plan that we look at and how we...
Okay.
That's a great point. Walking in the neighborhoods back in the election days, those sidewalks are in terrible shape.
Councilor Milonazo, do you want to, okay, anyone else? I just want to, just briefly, in 1992, Manager Jim Campbell had huge sections of that street done with concrete because it was deplorable. And I just want to know, if you start patching that beautiful entrance into the city with hot top, you're going to have a domino effect, and you're never going to get away from it. So I think we have to address that fully with the concrete. Manager Lynch?
Councilor, I couldn't. It's a beautiful entryway into the city, and unfortunately, I don't think this is something that has just happened recently. Much of that area, the patching, as Councilor Kazanjian points out, the patching that's been done on that roadway over the last number of years has been in bituminous rather than concrete, and it has become a domino effect. But that's where I think doing a master plan for that whole roadway and getting some state support is really the solution for us.
Okay, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. The chair would like to recognize Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could make a motion to suspend the rules for the purpose of addressing the letter on our desk for the clerk.
Motion to suspend the rules, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercia. All in favor of the suspension, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The suspension carries.
We received a letter today on the desk this evening from the solicitor relative to the expiring term of our clerk, and it's apparent that his term expired March 26th of 2008, and he's up for reappointment. And if no one objects, he'd like to be reappointed. And
make a motion to reappoint the clerk
motion to reappoint.
for another term.
Second.
Three-year term. Motion by Councilor Broderick to reappoint City Clerk Richard Johnson to a 3-year term, seconded by Councilor Lindsay. Roll call.
Councilor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Mayor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Kazanjian.
Yes.
Councilor Lenzi.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Before we adjourn, I just want to say that the former mayors, yes.
He should be clapping us. We're clapping him.
As the mayor and my former mayors and future mayors, you don't know how important the city clerk is to you in the course of a day, a week, the year. I lean on him constantly. I know you have, and he's always there, and he always has the right answers. So thank you for an excellent meeting. We're in time to catch the Red Sox. Any other discussion or questions? Motion to adjourn by Councilor Armin Mercia, seconded by Councilor Milonazo.